think we're coming up on 7 o'clock. Looks like most everybody's here except for Steve. So why don't we go ahead and call the roll? And since he's got a name at the end of the alphabet, maybe he'll show up by the time that you get there.
Maria Ryan.
Here.
Bart Bartles.
Here.
Morgan Johnston.
Here.
Todd Rusk. Andrew Stump.
Here.
Pam Wojtik. Steve Wald.
All right. Well, let's. We have a quorum, so let's get going. First, want to welcome Pam Wojtik to the commission. Pam's been a member of our community for almost 30 years, 27 years, and has been in university administration for 25 of those years, with the last 12 of them at facilities and services. So I was not surprised to see that she and Morgan know each other. She's responsible there for engineering and transportation services, and her responsibilities include transportation demand management, and where reducing single occupancy vehicle travel is a primary goal, and working with the transportation and automotive services to build a greener, more sustainable fleet for the university, which is a significant thing because there's a lot of vehicles that come out of that institution. So thank you very much for being willing to step forward and spend your first Tuesday evening of the month with us.
My pleasure.
All right. Do we have any changes to the agenda tonight? Okay. I did want to maybe just, we could maybe cover it under new business, talk a little bit about whether we want to meet in August or I'm not aware of any pressing business, and with the summer schedules and so forth, just think about whether we want to meet in August or if we want to maybe just skip to September. But we can cover that under new business later in the meeting. Any other changes to the agenda? Okay. All right. Minutes. Do we have a motion on the minutes from the previous meeting?
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any discussion, any changes? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, those are approved. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address us this evening? No. Okay. Then let's move to our staff report.
Maria, just real quickly.
Yeah.
My name's Christopher Marks. I'm with the Planning Division for Community Development in the City of Urbana. I'm kind of the liaison for sustainability action for the department, so I'm just kind of here to be a bird's eye view, providing input if necessary. So.
Great. Well, it's nice to meet you. Nice to see you here.
Okay. So first on staff report is some updates on our climate action plan. First, I had mentioned the Bike to Work Day and Bike to Work Day Workplace Challenge that the city had participated in. We now have the numbers for the Workplace Challenge, and Urbana did retain the trophy, the bragging rights trophy. Urbana had 17 check-ins from their city employees to Champaign's 12. So we retain the trophy. Next on renewable energy market, we have been awarded, City of Urbana has been awarded technical assistance from Grow Solar. This is a coalition of organizations in the state who received a DOE, Department of Energy grant to implement programs to encourage more rooftop solar in the state. So they're going to be doing a number of things for us. They're going to be working with us to produce some requests for quote documents. They're going to be evaluating our existing planning, zoning, permitting policies to make sure there is easy and fast to permit rooftop solar and a number of other things that we're going to put in the scope for that. So that's a pretty big deal for us. We also were recently awarded, particularly the mayor was awarded by the U.S. Conference of Mayors an honorable mention award in the small city category the award is the Mayor's Climate Protection Award. They give out a number each year, and they also give out several honorable mentions. And our Mayor Pressing was awarded for the city's work in the Urbana-Champaign Energy Star Challenge. Next, in staff report, we have the pie chart for our climate action plan progress. And you'll see there's an edit there with the recommendation from last month to add a continuous category. So continuous is light green, completed is dark green. Continuous are the activities that we have, say, fully implemented, but they're not done. They're continuous. So they're both in that nice green color, but different shades to distinguish them. Moving on, City Green Team, another award. The City Green Team and the City Building, the building we're in now, placed in the top 10 as an honorable mention in the Illinois Green Office Challenge. That was a project that we've talked about several times where buildings compete with each other on a number of energy, water, waste, and procurement categories. Bart, anything to add to that?
No, actually, but thanks for participating.
Sure.
Yeah, well done. And there was a pretty good turnout for the celebration where everybody kind of came together, and not just those that finished in the top couple places, but actually most of the participants showed up, and we had a good time at a celebration a couple weeks ago. So yeah, thanks for taking part.
Sure. Moving on to our water plan. We recently hosted a rain barrel and compost bin sale. We've done this 3 years in a row now, I think. Once again, we sold about 500 rain barrels to the broader community, Urbana-Champaign, Savoy, and a few people from the county and other counties. So I suppose we'll do it again. I keep wondering what year we're going to stop selling as much, and, sort of fill out all the demand that's there, but it hasn't happened yet. And 160 of those 500 of the rain barrel rebates were claimed by Urbana residents through the stormwater utility program. So the rain barrel rebates through the city stormwater utility are, I think, the single most popular incentive in the stormwater utility program so far. So that's excellent. And then there's the breakdown. You can see that Urbana got, the spacing got a little messed up. Urbana certainly got their share of those purchases. Following that is our
Just curious how the 160 aligns with the 298 listed for rain barrels sold in
So
Urbana.
I suspect that the balance of the 298 are people who are buying an additional rain barrel after they had already claimed their stormwater utility rebate, so they're coming back for more.
Okay.
Following that is our pie chart on our water plan progress. Again, I've edited how that spreadsheet tracks to have a continuous column. Also, in doing so, found some errors in the Excel formulas, and so the other numbers are slightly different than previous months. Our next regularly scheduled meeting would be August 4th, but we're taking August off, it sounds like.
I thought we would just have a brief discussion of that
Okay.
later in
Great.
case anybody did have something that they want to cover in August.
That's it.
All right. Any questions or comments for Scott?
I do. On the Gross Solar Technical Assistance Grant, what's the time frame for that? Is that with the federal fiscal year? So maybe November? Is
They
it
want
1
to
year?
this particular technical assistance. They want to complete all work by end of calendar year.
By end of calendar year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Are they going to come in town? Will we have an opportunity to have them here at some point?
I don't know for sure if they're going to come to town.
Mhm.
There's going to be a lot of phone calls and
Yeah.
email documents that go back and forth. And I'm waiting to get a timeline template sent from them, and we'll start fleshing that out.
Okay.
But if they could make it to an SAC meeting, that would certainly be beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a fast project.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? All right.
Related to the Green Office Challenge, I would just like to point out that Urbana beat out the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I think it was by 1. Were you guys 8 and we were 9, something like that? But we are committed to trying again next year. I don't know if Urbana is planning on that currently.
We'll have to
Should be good.
discuss it with the city green team.
I can, if I can follow up on that. The challenge is going to be tweaked a little bit going forward because we did some surveys after the challenge was over, and there was a lot of interest in additional metrics being part of the competition. They really enjoyed the measurables at the end, especially the energy component that was kind of a decider as far as the winners go. So that piece of it, the participants seemed to really like that and the live leaderboard. So a combination of the two seemed to be pretty big hits. We'll probably be contacting you, Scott and Morgan, as we go forward, as we try to make adjustments to the activities and, just do what the participants really want to do. Thanks.
All right. Other comments before we move to the municipal greenhouse gas inventory?
Is that no comments? It looks like, are you seeing this on your screen? Okay, hold on. Great. So what was in your packet and what I'm showing on the screen is our first municipal greenhouse gas inventory. This is an inventory of all of the emissions responsible from the city's operations, so buildings, fleets, and all the things that are within the city's purview. This is done, the tool that we use is the same tool that we use for the community greenhouse gas emissions inventory. They have two separate modules. They work similarly, but not quite the same because they're kind of two different animals. Was interested in utilizing that piece of the tool for a couple of reasons. One, it's good to know kind of where the city's emissions are coming from. So if we want to address the big pieces, we know where to go. Two, we've set ourselves up to conduct a community greenhouse gas emissions inventory once every 2 years. And I was actually afraid that using that tool once every 2 years would mean I'm relearning how to use it every 2 years. Whereas if I do some work on it every year, to stay fresh. So just to go through it real quickly, it's a much shorter document than our climate action plan because we're not laying out any goals or actions, but just showing where we stand. So the summary page looks similar to what we've done with the community inventory and also the climate action plan. We just attempted to put ourselves in context. So you see our emissions in our most recent reporting year, the only reporting year we have, and then other cities in their most recent reporting year and then their previous year with a % change. In putting this together, it's always great to have context to know, well, are we right in the middle? Are we out in front? Are we are we behind? However, thinking about how cities might scope and how the tool allows you to scope. There's a lot of items that we may not include that others might. So other cities have their own wastewater treatment facilities within the city. We do not. Other cities have an electric utility. We do not. Others a water utility. So when you start thinking about those pretty substantial differences that you might be missing when you compare to other cities, the context maybe is not quite as valuable. But in any event, there it is.
Scott,
Yes,
is the per capita the city population or the employees?
city population. That also brought up an interesting distinction. When the city of Urbana first created its 2007 greenhouse gas emissions for community, we excluded emissions from buildings that were owned and controlled by the university because they were also going to conduct their own inventory. And we also excluded that portion of the population from our calculations in terms of per capita. Probably other cities did not do that. Maybe some did. So that's another fuzziness in terms of comparing to other cities.
Scott, when you're looking for cities, I guess it's sort of obvious. These are cities that are measuring their greenhouse gas emissions through the same tool. So that's the
No, not necessarily.
Oh, not necessarily.
No, we did not look at what tool they were using.
Okay.
It's hard enough just to find published documents.
Okay. Okay. So these are not all subscribing to the same measuring tool.
No.
And that's not the data set. Okay.
One of the things I've tried to do is use the same cities that we originally used for comparison in 2007 throughout all these documents. Sometimes they do not continue to produce data, so that's a challenge. Other cities would be very relevant for us to compare ourselves with, like, say, Normal, Illinois. And so I have an interest in including them, but we were kind of starting from scratch in terms of finding their data. So it's, this context is something that we'll continue to develop. On the next page, we have our 2014 municipal greenhouse gas emissions by sector. These are the sectors that are available in the tool, which we also have responsibility for within the city. So there are additional sectors that we could have put data into, but say, for instance, wastewater treatment is not something that we own. So what we have in our inventory is the buildings, the waste that we generate, street lights and traffic lights, and vehicles. And what's interesting is it's pretty stark that buildings are clearly our largest source of greenhouse gases. If the sanitary district was incorporated into the city, maybe that would look different, but it isn't, so it doesn't. On the next page, I put in our municipal electric and gas consumption. This is something we also did in the community, in the climate action plan. And so you can see, kind of the trend that we've got for our electric consumption and also the relative proportions, how much is lighting and how much is building. You see a big change around 2009, 2010. The total didn't change, just the relative proportions, which Todd and I discussed and figured it was, what did we decide? It was probably just a reclassification of some of the accounts in the data that Ameren provided us.
For the lighting, that's the exterior lighting, street lights?
Correct. Yeah, street lights that have their own accounts. So that wouldn't include, the lights above us in the room. On the next page, you'll see the familiar, sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. Municipal gas consumption also has a notable trend. Did you normalize for weather or heating degree days or anything?
No, but Todd's going to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, thanks.
familiar projections. The first one is a 2014 to 2020 greenhouse gas emissions projection with the impact of the renewable portfolio standard. And you see again, it has a positive impact on our emissions profile. And you can also see again, the relative proportion of buildings is quite substantial. The second chart is also 2014 to 2020 with the renewable portfolio standard and with a scenario whereby we purchased renewable energy credits for electricity consumption, and you see quite a substantial impact. And that's all the report.
And
Any questions?
Scott, I was just curious because the keys note the goal lines, but we don't really have goals. So I don't know if that was just
Yeah, they're grayed out.
sort of, yeah, okay.
Right.
So that was just
So I
left over.
have toggled those off. The tool has a problem in that when you enter in your goal in one screen, you say 25% reduction. Well, what we mean is a 25% reduction from 2007. But when I produce a chart that starts in 2014, it takes that 2014 as a starting date and does 25% reduction. So it's a problem with the tool that they're going to have to fix at some point. And until then, I just keep toggling it off.
The second chart makes it appear that the rec purchase only applies to building and facility energy use, not to streetlights and traffic signals. Is that
Correct.
we have our own contract for.
Well, we have a franchise agreement for lighting. That's not to say that we couldn't go out to the market and buy recs all by themselves. But I believe that's not how I modeled it. I think I modeled it just for the buildings. The buildings we go out every 2 years. Well, that it's recent practice, the regulated market. We go out every 2 years and sign a deal for power supply. And so that would be a very easy one to roll in the purchase of recs right into the per kilowatt price.
Other questions or comments? All right, thank you. I think we have next energy use summary.
Okay, did that show up on screens? So just to jump right to the high-level view of 2014 energy use. So this is the analysis. I'll just jump up one page. So Scott sent me monthly electricity and natural gas data for all of the electric and natural gas accounts in the city. And these are aggregated, so I don't have individual account data. And so these are broken out by category. So there was residential, commercial, industrial. There was a couple of there was public authority, which we take to mean public buildings, and then electric lighting sales to public authority. And so so I did some analysis, weather normalized, on that monthly data, and then so just the annual summary for 2014. So what we see is, when again, commercial buildings, that's where most of our energy consumption is. So we have we see all the different categories, and we're displaying electricity in terms of. So for commercial buildings, you would interpret that as 240 million kilowatt hours consumption for the commercial building sector in 2014, and 10 million therms of natural gas consumption for commercial buildings, and then the rest of the chart reads the same way. So the point of this is to just bring all of the data together and give a sense of how's the consumption breakout on a sector basis. So then I'll jump back to the spreadsheet, because I have some charts that do some of the weather normalization, and we can see what's going on from 2012 to 2014. And so we've been at this climate action plan for a while, and so the main bummer to report is there's no change to speak of in any of the sectors, with a few exceptions. So I'm going to just go over to these charts and zoom in on it. So what we're going to look at first is this chart in the middle. So this is for commercial buildings, and so it is the monthly trend. That's the black line of electricity use in commercial buildings. So this is the black line represents kilowatt hours per month, and if you look over to the left vertical axis, that indicates the electricity consumption figures. And so what we see is just the seasonal increase in the summertime for air conditioning, and then a decrease. And we have these little additional peaks in the wintertime, and we see those things in the winter. We account for that oftentimes by electric space heat, or just HVAC systems spending more time running. And so this is one way to look at the information, and then so the red line we have here, this is heating degree days, and so the red line and the blue line, heating degree days and cooling degree days respectively, those go over to the right-hand axis. So more heating degree days, when the red line is higher, that means a colder month, and more cooling degree days, when the blue line is showing a higher value, that means a warmer month. And so what we often see is when looking at an individual building, and in this case it looks like that when we look at an aggregation of buildings, is that we see a correlation or a coincidence of increasing cooling degree days with increasing electricity usage. And so that's really common, and that's what we expect. And so in this graph, what we don't really see any kind of a significant upward or downward trend. This isn't the greatest display for measuring that. So
Todd,
yeah.
does that normalize for square footage of commercial space?
I don't have data on square footage. What we have.
Because this is the total, right?
This
Not-
is the total for the entire sector. So the other data point that we have are number of utility accounts. And I didn't prepare a graph for that. I didn't see anything significant with that. I did create an additional chart that is electricity use on a per account basis, so I can show that one in a moment. But to get to just the aggregate, so this is one way of doing weather normalization. And so what we have here on the vertical axis on the left side, that is the monthly consumption, and each dot on the graph, no matter what color or shape, represents 1 month of consumption. And so you track it along the horizontal axis of the monthly mean temperature. And so what we see in here is kind of a V-shape, a V-shape curve, where in the mildest weather of the year we have the lowest electricity consumption. In the warmest weather we have the highest consumption, and then we see a little bit of an increase in the winter as well. And so the purpose of this chart is to show for a given outdoor weather condition, when we stack the years on top of each other, do the curves for each year take on a different shape? And in this case, they don't. So I think that's the punchline for this particular graph. So to get to Morgan's question, this is the same chart, but instead of aggregate consumption for the commercial building sector, this is on a per account basis. And again, we don't see anything that statistically looks like any kind of a significant change. Before I go to the gas, any questions on that so far? Okay. So this is the natural gas, and same thing as before, but the consumption units are in therms per month. And so again, in this case we see a strong correlation between the gas use, that's the black line, and the heating degree days. And so we expect that because we use gas for heating. So more heating degree days typically translates into more gas use. And that's what we see here. So I'll go down to the weather normalized.
Hey, Todd, is it significant that there's the mismatch between years? In one case, the black line really matches.
Yeah, it is
half.
significant. So this is one of the places where we see something different. And so 2014 was we saw. So at CDAC, with a lot of our clients, we saw a lot of increased natural gas use in the winter time. And so when you look at this normalized chart, 2014, especially the winter, it looks like it's sitting on a different curve. I mean, these look like a different set of buildings. And so while I don't have anything more to substantiate it, what we saw with school districts and organizations that have lots of buildings is that winter was so cold that building managers and operators, they were basically afraid that water pipes were going to freeze. And so they were letting their buildings run all night. And so it was just a completely different situation. Now, I don't know if it's valid to take that kind of, take that situation and apply it to an entire diverse commercial building sector of Urbana. but you know, I guess just it's striking to see that, you know, when we're seeing lots of organizations have the same thing, that we're seeing commercial buildings do this as well.
I guess the other variable that could matter a lot is the price of gas, but although I'm not immediately familiar with big differences between 2014 and 2013.
That could be a variable, and I'm, you know, I don't have that data, so I'm not in a position to comment on it.
Just anecdotally, I heard a lot of comments about how cheap gas was during the winter of 14. So.
Okay. So, you know, I think this one will remain a head scratcher. You know, is this you know, is this a trend, or is it just a blip? So stay tuned with bated breath. And then, you know, normalized on a per account basis, same thing. So I'll jump over to industrial buildings, and I'll move through this one faster. So up on the top here, we have both electricity and natural gas. And I guess the first thing that I would note is that there were 3 accounts listed for electricity in the industrial sector. So, and I think about 15 accounts for natural gas. So as far as trends and all of that, it's a little bit difficult to say much of anything when you have that few number of data points. And then the natural gas, we just have we have times with missing data, and obviously, you know, none of us believe 0 therms per month. So, you know, we don't have much to say about the natural gas right now. You see a striking decrease in electricity use, but again, with only 3 accounts, hard to know exactly what to say about that. Let's see. I'll just skip past the weather normalization on that one. So this is residential buildings. So again, up on top, electricity and natural gas consumption. From this time-based chart, we don't see a whole lot in terms of upward or downward trends. And let's see. Okay, there we go. And then when we look at the weather normalized version, again we see the years, the data points for the different years just stacking up on top of each other, and so we don't really see anything different.
Todd, could you go back to the chart right above the one that your mouse was over?
This one?
Yeah. I
The
see
per-
what you're
the
saying
per
about
account?
the other view with the weather normalized by the month. It doesn't show a significant, but here it seems like the peak in the summer months is decreasing notably. If you only look at the summer
Are you looking at electricity or natural gas?
electricity.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at the cooling degree days,
Oh, it's relative to that.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
So electricity in residential buildings is a little bit different. So remember that this is all of, these are a whole bunch of homes, and we have a lot of homes that are all electric heat. We have homes that are a mixture, a hybrid. We have electric baseboard heating and natural gas. And so with the, like with the commercial sector, we saw a very dominant peak in the summertime and kind of a, minor peak in the winter. And so with the residential, we see kind of these co-dominant peaks with the winter and the summer. Did that? Okay. And then, the weather normalized view. This U shape, this is just another way of seeing how how in the residential sector electricity use is really important during cold weather. This could be, if we this could be a strategy, but for now, our electricity use in the residential sector is largely offset. So, and a lot of times our electricity use would have a higher carbon footprint than the natural gas. But since we have offsets, that strategy kind of goes away. I wish I had, some interesting changes to report, but, it is what it is. This is sales to public authority, and so this is buildings. Could be municipal, public sector. It's without more information, it's difficult to know exactly who and how many buildings are in this. We do have the number of accounts. Again, not seeing a whole lot. Jump to the weather normalized. We see a little bit of scatter. It's hard to know on the electricity use why is that happening. Natural gas use is coming out, basically the same. And then public authority lighting. This would be outdoor street lighting. And I didn't do weather normalization on this one because it's independent of the weather, but it is dependent on daylight and day length, and so it does look like a little bit of a decreasing trend over time, but then right at the end of 2014, then it seems to jump back up to where it was before. So I don't have an explanation for that because there's lots of accounts in there. But, like everything with statistics, more data will reveal more of a story. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I don't have anything like that. Scott, you and I talked about that a little bit, but I don't think we concluded anything.
Only that getting data on our lighting is difficult.
You had a hard enough time getting monthly data like this.
That was from Ameren and joining the Georgetown University Energy Prize.
Mm-hmm.
Facilitated that.
I have a memory of maybe six months or maybe a year of every other month asking you if we could get monthly energy data. So that's all I have. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to entertain them.
Well, thanks for your work. This is, it's just interesting to see it. I mean, it is kind of a shame that we're not seeing downward trends, but
Yep.
at least this way we have some visual clarity about
Yep.
what the situation is. Thanks for your work.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and Scott, want to give us a progress update on the climate action plan?
Okay, this will be similar to the update that I gave on the water plan last month. For starters, the time frame that we had put in for this plan was 2015 to 2020 for this particular phase. We weren't explicit about whether that was January 1, 2020 or December 31st, 2020. And we weren't explicit about it in the water plan either. So to deal with that, I started with all of the reports that I'm doing, and so I'll just go through this briefly with you, starting at the top. First, our municipal electric aggregation report. We get a quarterly set of data from our vendor, and I kind of manipulate that into a more readable report. And that's the data is quarterly, but when exactly we get it varies a little bit, so I put it out as soon as I can. It's posted on the website, the city's website. It pretty much looks the same every month. So if you're interested, it's there, and you can look at all the quarterly reports. Second one is the Energy Star Portfolio Manager report. This is somewhat technical. I share it with folks at Public Works, and I think I've shared it here at SAC. It's just a report of how our buildings are performing over time. Third one is a WasteWise report. WasteWise is a US EPA program. We use their database to measure and track our waste and recycling over time. And again, a kind of a technical report. I share it with facilities because they're interested in that sort of thing, and I share it with SAC. Next is a report that pulls together energy, water waste, and nuisance, which our division also oversees. And I've created that report for the first time this year, and it was a kind of summary, and I want to expand it for next year. I'd like to get it out every March, so it's a calendar year report, and get it out in March. Sometimes the data that we're asking for we can't get by March. So, for instance, this year we weren't able to publish that till April. I'm going to skip the next three and go down to the last item, water quality report. You'll see that is every 2 years, and the reason for that is it's essentially an excerpt from the State Integrated Water Quality Report. It's a massive document that's difficult to make your way through and find the 3 streams that are in Urbana and learn something about them. So I just extract that data and put it into a summary that we can look at every 2 years. Now, going back to greenhouse gas inventories, I've got 2 of them there, municipal and a community. You can see that I've scheduled them in opposite years, so they're each every 2 years in differing years. And if you look at greenhouse gas inventory for community, you'll recall that we currently have 2 inventories, our 2007 baseline and our 2013 calendar year update. If we were to continue that inventory every 2 years as we had laid out in our plans, that would make calendar year 2015 our next one, which would be reported in March 2016. So hopefully that's clear on the line there. Now, if you carry that through every 2 years, that means relative to our 2015 to 2020 time frame for our climate action plan, we have a choice of either reporting calendar year 2019 in March 2020 and saying, have we met our climate action plan goals or not, or waiting until 2022 and our calendar year 2021 inventory. Is that clear? Okay. And I think it makes most sense to say that our climate action plan is interested in completing activities January 1, 2020, which would be a calendar year 2019 inventory reported in March 2020. It's a lot of years.
Scott,
Yes.
that makes perfect sense to me, and I think we
Great.
should just implement that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Do we have to vote on it?
No. I mean, if you want, you can.
But I think it'd be good to record it in the minutes for posterity.
The last item on this slide, the Carbon Climate Registry, seems to be becoming the leading international registry for greenhouse gas emissions. We put our data on there for the first time for our 2013 inventory. And so you see that follows the community inventory in terms of the years. Any other questions? Great. Okay, so time frame, as we mentioned. Status summary as of today for our climate action plan. 47% in the queue. 43% of items are in progress. We've done something on them to move them forward. 3% of items are implemented and continuous, and 7% of items completed. I will go through each of them individually, but hopefully expeditiously as well. Again, color coding. Black is in the queue. Orange is in progress. Green, dark green completed, light green continuous, and red is staff note. My tracking sheet is more simplified from the water plan. Instead of having multiple tabs they have to piece together later on, it's one sheet, and it's organized chronologically rather than by the goal sections. So the printout that I put in front of you, if you want to follow along, you'll see that we're starting at the top and going down. I've also got the year completion date at the top of each slide. So to get started, first item, propose an ordinance or a policy requiring new facilities to achieve LEED certification. That's an item that we've placed in a draft green procurement plan or green procurement policy that executive staff are considering presently. Second, evaluate existing zoning and development codes for possible integration of LEED ND or other green development standards. That is in the queue. Next, engage the Illinois State Water Survey to evaluate and update to design storm standards. That is completed. We sent a letter to the state climatologist asking them to reevaluate Bulletin 70. That's a technical document that describes what the standard 100-year storm is, 50-year storm, and from that standard, development standards, local development standards flow. Questions on the first slide? Okay. Steve?
I think you covered this maybe last month, but the letter was sent, and was there an update beyond that? Did you hear back? Is there?
We got a response that it was received, but I haven't heard any word about any actions to be taken at this point.
I heard on NPR this week an article about this exact issue with river levels, both as a result of engineered flood control projects, possibly other kinds of development, and changing climate, all kinds of 100-year flood data being vastly out of date. So the issue that we raised is in the national.
We're ahead of the
consciousness
curve,
as well.
once again. Great. Next slide, 2016 completion dates. First item, actually the first two are essentially the same, just commercial versus residential sector. We've talked about this one before at the commission. We're looking at starting farther at the beginning than these are proposing, rather than working on providing some sort of incentive that we don't think would get any uptake or a lot of uptake. We're working on some activities to build understanding, recognition, and slowly interest and demand for for LEED, Energy Star, and Passive House. And so we're tentatively scheduling some presentations to a commercial audience, a business audience, and a developer audience, which would talk about LEED, Energy Star, and Passive House. So we want to start there and have some dialogue and see what the building community thinks about these and where we might go from there. Next item, evaluate funding needed to increase tree pruning cycle to preserve existing trees. That is a sort of a mitigation and an adaptation strategy that we had in our plan. Pruned trees live longer. The longer they live, the longer they store carbon. Longer they live, the longer they shade houses and reduce cooling load. So the city used to have a more frequent pruning cycle than it currently has, and so we're working with the Arbor Division to evaluate what would be needed to bring that pruning cycle back to where it was. Next item, partner with existing energy efficiency programs and community groups. We have a number of several partnerships going. First is the Pasteur Power Climate Action Teams program with the School for Designing a Society. The Energy Star Challenge is working with most of the municipalities and several agencies in the county. And we're exploring some marketing partnerships with Ameren. Not exactly sure what'll materialize with that. Next item, purchase green power partnership qualified renewable energy credits in future municipal electric aggregation agreements. That's just not ripe yet. We aren't to the point where we're going out for a new agreement yet. Final item on the slide, incorporate pollinator supportive plant species in city landscapes. That one's marked as in progress. The city already uses a lot of pollinator supportive plant species. They use a lot of native species, a lot of cultivars of native species. So what we're exploring now is what does enough look like in terms of quality or quantity? How do you measure that? Any questions on that slide? Okay. 2017 completion dates. First item, proposed strategies to improve the local on-site renewable energy market. I've got these all marked as in progress. These are hopefully all going to be within the scope of this Grow Solar technical assistance. I hope to have some of these marked as completed by the end of the calendar year. Others will be longer term projects that will go into the next year and maybe beyond. Next item, engage Ameren Illinois to facilitate energy data access for commercial facilities through Energy Star Portfolio Manager web services. This is marked as complete. We sent a letter to Ameren asking that they support web services, as well as what lots of states call virtual net metering, what Illinois calls meter aggregation for off-site renewable energy production facilities. So we sent them one letter with both of those items in it. Final item on this slide, seek funding for Urbana Home Energy Performance Program. Again, this just isn't ripe. We had marked this for 2017. And I don't think this budget cycle, which we just entered, was going to be amenable to an additional funding request such as that. So we'll look at it for the future. Any questions on that slide?
On the last item, you're talking about the funding cycle, and what source were you looking? Were you talking like internal funds or external?
Yeah. Well, if there were external funds, we might be going for it. If there was a grant available that would fund that type of activity, we'd certainly be interested.
Mm-hmm.
So the request would be of internal funds.
Got it.
One potential funding source would be the fees that are associated with our municipal electric aggregation program. But that revenue is needed other places in the city at this point.
Okay.
2018 completion dates. First item, purchase Green Power Partnership qualified renewable energy credits and/or the installation of on-site renewable energy for facilities. I've got that marked as in the queue. That may become part of the Grow Solar Technical Assistance scope. Particularly with respect to on-site renewables. We may explore a request for quote for a power purchase agreement to install solar on city facilities. If the technical assistance folks think that it's feasible that we could get some responses that might be at a reasonable price. It's hard to know what price we're going to get. Because there's not a lot of these going on in Illinois. But there seems to be more interest in on-site solar and PPAs in Illinois in the recent past. So it may be in the scope. Next item, pursue long-term purchase of bundled renewable power and renewable energy credits. We've been looking at a lot of different ways to purchase renewable energy in the market with our municipal electric aggregation, and also more specifically with our city facilities demand. There's not a lot of real clear solutions yet, but we're going to continue to pursue that. And I know Morgan at the university is also looking at this.
Are you going to the Renewable Energy Conference?
Sadly, I will be on vacation.
Okay. I will share what I find out.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Last item on this slide, partner with organizations conducting smart grid education engagement, also not ripe. Our region is due, I think it's 2019, to have smart meters installed on every residential and I think commercial meter in the city as a part of some state statutes for smart grid implementation. And so, you know, we're going to wait till, well, I guess it's 2018 probably, since we put this as a 2018 goal. So we'll wait till 2018 when it makes a lot more sense to talk about smart grid as we start getting smart meters. Any questions on that slide? 2019 completion dates. First item, proposed strategies to increase renewable energy purchasing in the commercial sector. We may be able to address this with the Grow Solar Technical Assistance insofar as they may be able to design a Solarize program for us. Solarize is sort of a community group purchase program. Lots of cities around the country have done it, and it seems to be that such a program reduces rooftop solar installation costs anywhere from 10 to 33%. Last item on this slide, evaluate opportunities to retrofit existing outdoor lighting with more energy efficient lighting. We had a project set to do that in partnership with the university. We would have shared the cost. It was on a street that fronts some university buildings, and we were going to apply for a grant from the Clean Energy Community Foundation, and they canceled the grant. So we'll be looking for other opportunities soon. Any questions on that slide?
Scott, are you looking at adaptive lighting, bi-level lighting with the exterior lighting?
I think that's all in the mix. I think the city's looking at that. I don't know what
Options.
we've installed in terms of that technology. Todd, do you know?
I think that the newest parking lot on campus also has that. I know that there was an installation a few years ago in a parking lot. Actually, Pam, do you know if E14 is the bi-level LEDs?
In the parking lot south of the law building.
We're evaluating that on some of our parking lots, and I think the city would benefit from it too, definitely.
Sure. 2020 completion dates. Reduce single occupancy vehicle mode share. We had a number of different strategies here, most of them in the queue. One in process, encourage transit ridership. We met with folks at MTD who do marketing there, and just had a discussion about different ways to cultivate more transit ridership. And so we'll be following up on some of those. Some of them are really obvious or easy, just, you know, we're all busy and hadn't got to it, such as, you know, make sure MTD knows they have access to UPTV for promotional purposes when our goals coincide. So we'll be following up with that. Next item, reduce tree species, genus, and family preponderance. This was kind of a formalization of what had been an informal policy with the Arbor Division for years. They've long felt that spreading our species, genus, and family diversity out would lead to a more resilient tree canopy. And they, with their recent street tree inventory, they actually had data as to where our preponderance percentages were. And so we set some goals that were just a little bit more aggressive than where we already were. So that's underway. Next item, work with the SAC to inventory greenhouse gas emissions. So we'll be doing that next year. Partner with the Green Power Partnership. That is an EPA program that recognizes and supports communities who buy renewable power, including renewable energy credits. Partner with local tenant unions in the queue. And finally, work with the SAC to create a new plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for the 2020 to 2050 period. Any questions on that slide?
Just to clarify, given what we talked about a little while ago with the January 1st, 2020 date, the idea is that anything on this slide is essentially going to be done by the end of the year 2019?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
A question. Was this goal about the bicycle-friendly community from before Urbana got the gold status? So that might be done as opposed to...
I think we put next level of certification because our application was pending, and
So
we
it
didn't know
means
if
the
we were
one
going
after
to, where we're
gold.
going to be. So no matter where we came out, unless we were platinum, which we didn't anticipate, which is the highest level, we would be setting a goal for the next highest level. So we are gold. Platinum is the only thing left, I think. Other questions on this slide? Okay. So looking at some of the items that are in the queue or that are in progress that we're actively working on, I think this is a potential status by the end of the calendar year, just flipping some of those in progress over to completed. So I'm hopeful that we'll reach that. A few photo highlights. You'll see the poster for Pester Power. There's a photo from the Energy Star Challenge Awards and the logo from the Grow Solar Technical Assistance. A few data highlights, all familiar. These are all in our climate action plan because we don't have a new inventory. The bite taken out of our emissions is the renewable energy credits. The dotted lines are our goals. More highlights, you can see our 2007 to 2013 inventory numbers with a 10% reduction, substantially from the renewable energy credits. Any additional questions?
Yes. Could you explain the Georgetown prize? Is that... I kind of thought you might get into that with the Pester Power comments, but I don't really understand what it is that where we're at in that and what we need to do.
Sure. The Georgetown University Energy Prize is a competition among a selected group of 50 cities to compete for 2 years on reducing per capita energy consumption. The winner will be, it's a multiple stage competition, and Urbana has made it through the first 2 stages. There will be another stage where 10 finalist cities will be selected, and then one city will win $5 million. There is a leaderboard for the Georgetown University Energy Prize being developed. I've seen mock-ups of the leaderboard. It should be going up anytime now on guep.org. It's a pretty dynamic leaderboard, so it should be really interesting. We are submitting quarterly energy data for the program, which is how and why we were able to start receiving quarterly energy data from Ameren.
Any other questions, comments? All right, well, thank you very much. We'll, if we can move to our continuing business. As both Scott and I mentioned earlier, we were thinking about possibly canceling the August meeting, but I had just wanted to, be sure that we didn't have anything pressing that folks were thinking about addressing in August. So, going once, going twice. Okay, gone. We'll skip August and meet again in September. Do we have any announcements this evening?
I do. The Institute for Sustainability, Energy, and Environment is planning a workshop for local businesses on October 20th. We're just beginning to finalize the venue and the schedule and reach out to the business community, but we are about to send out a save the date. I thought I'd say it now, October 20th from noon to about 3:30 on campus. And we have a tentative name of a community conversation on energy conservation. -- say that 5 times fast. And so if any businesses are interested, they can email sustainability@illinois.edu.
Other announcements?
I've got an announcement. The Urbana Park District is undertaking a new rehabilitation, management, and access plan to help improve the health of Crystal Lake and increase and improve recreational opportunities around the lake over the long term. They're having a public meeting regarding this plan Wednesday, July 15th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And that's at the Planning and Operations Office. It's at 1011 East Kerr.
Okay, other announcements? All right, seeing no other business before us, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
A second.
All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.